points that I'd like to discuss regarding intellectual knowledge and sincerity that we should have whenever we increase in our knowledge. I am going to follow the methodology of the Quran, or at least some of the scholars of tafsir, when they said that al-ibra bi-umum al-lafz la bi khusus al-sabab, which effectively means that even though an ayah of the Quran was revealed for a particular incident, the sabab al-nuzul, the reason for revelation for that particular ayah, the general wording of the ayah is not specific to that incident. So even though a particular ayah was revealed for a reason and for a particular individual or for a particular occasion, it does not mean that we cannot take benefit from this. And so some of the matters, some of the points that I'll be mentioning in today's reminder is with respect to things that we may feel that we will not fall into. And we will be thinking about certain individuals. We'll be thinking about this Shaykh and this Imam and this Talibul Ilm and this person and that person, a person who comes from abroad, a person who is resident in this country. But rather, I do not want you to think about anyone except for one person. And this person is yourself. This is something that we should be thinking of in terms of our journey of self-introspection. I say this because sometimes when we think about an individual, we distance ourselves from the characteristics that I may mention and think, this is not going to happen with me. And also, we may fall into the trap of, because this person is, or this individual, this person, whoever it may be, Salam rahmatullah, that perhaps some of the scholars or whoever has branded this individual a deviant, or a kafir, or an innovator, or someone who is even a sinner. And so as a result of this, we feel that this is not something that's going to affect us. And the characteristic that we should have empathy with are the characteristics of the likes of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. That for him it wasn't an issue of an individual, a personal attack, but rather it was with respect to the principle. An example of this is an individual who was an innovator. He was an innovator at the time of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. And as a result of this, he was like the enemy of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. And he would be writing books and condemning him in public. And when it reached Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, through his students, and amongst them was Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, who narrated this incident to Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that your enemy, your arch rival, he has died. And the way that it was presented to him was to show that this is a time for us to celebrate. This is a time for us to be happy. And so Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said, take me to the mother of this man. Take me to the mother of this man. And so he went to the mother of this person who he considered to be an innovator, and he said to him very humbly that even though your son has passed away, he has died, then let me take the rights that he used to fulfill. Which shows us that this is not something which is personal, but rather this is something which is a right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in terms of increasing our knowledge, it is extremely important that we have, as a result of it, the concept of sincerity, of ikhlas. And indeed, ikhlas, it enters every single chapter or every single action that we can think of with respect to al-Islam. But one of the things that we should be very wary of is new knowledge that we attain, or new information that we gain, and how we should react to that new knowledge. I'll give you an example. Perhaps some people, even many years ago, they were only told about one opinion. And as a result of that one opinion, or that one hadith that they had come across, they felt that this was the only opinion, and then they would start enjoining good, forbidding evil based on that. And as a result of increasing their knowledge and finding out that the matter is more flexible, or the matter is not as black and white as this, then what they would do is that they would follow the other opinion to show others that my knowledge has increased, I have developed, I have reached the age of enlightenment, while you are barbaric, you have fallen, you are still in the dark ages. This is a very oversimplified way of expressing it. But just taking a very simple example, the issue of isbal, having the trousers over the ankles, we may find ourselves that perhaps we will come to some knowledge that we have progressed in, knowing that this is an issue of ikhtilaf, this is a difference of opinion. But then what we will do, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from this, that we will wear our trousers below the ankles in order to show our peers, our colleagues, our friends, the ma'moom of the masjid, that I have progressed in my knowledge. I have progressed in my knowledge. And sometimes we may even, in our prayer, do something which will be considered to be strange to others. And throughout the whole of the prayer, we're thinking to ourselves that, I hope that the person who is right next to me, he asks me why I did this so I can answer him. This again is extremely dangerous, because we have destroyed our prayer and we have destroyed our knowledge. Knowledge is considered to be worship. It is ibadah. And as a result of this, we are doing it for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes we find ourselves in meetings, or we find ourselves in the presence of other people, and in order to show that we have something to say, or we have knowledge that other people do not have knowledge of, we will be negative about something. We call it critical analysis, critical thinking. Because we want to show to others that I have a really good opinion and I want to say it amongst all of my peers, all of my friends. And I find this even amongst the kuffar. Sometimes when I'm in a meeting at work, a person will say, something that I know for a fact that they don't believe in, but they'll say it because it sounds good. So they can impress their bosses, they can impress their colleagues. Oh, such and such person, that was a really good point. And this is something that we have to be very wary of. Because someone who is constantly agreeing with someone, or someone who agrees with someone else, they will be considered to be yes men. They will be considered to be those people who do not critically analyze something. And as a result, they will pick holes into an argument just for the sake of it. Or another aspect of this first point of new information or new knowledge is that we may go to the other extreme. We want to show to other people that we are balanced. So we will look at the writings of people who oppose us, and then we may quote those people. Or we will, in order to show that, I am balanced, I have read the other side. And by quoting certain people, quoting scholars, quoting philosophers, and whatever the case may be, we are trying to impress others. And this is something that we have to be very wary and very cautious of. So this is the first thing, attaining new knowledge. How do we react? How do we deal with matters when we come across such aspects? Another matter that we have to be very careful of is having an intellectual crisis. What do I mean by intellectual crisis? Again, following on from this aspect of critical thinking, we may feel that we need to be more independent. And of course, being independent is very good. And it is important to sometimes think out the box and so on and so forth. But it can also be blameworthy as well. An example of this is from my own observations and my own experiences, which is of course very limited. I find that some people who have studied abroad and they come back, their opinions that they held whilst they were abroad is very different to the opinions that they hold whilst they're living in the Western context. And of course, they need to adjust, they need to adapt to the level of the people, that they don't make the deen so difficult, because the fiqh, it changes, of course, based on very stringent guidelines and principles from that which has been explained from the scholars of the past, that it may differ with respect to the Western context. An example of this is the issue of salah. That some of the scholars of Saudi Arabia, they would consider the one who does not pray to be a kafir. Now, our situation in this country may be different, because not everyone knows that it's an obligation. I have many relatives, I know many people who think that the one who prays five times a day, it is just something which is good. So they don't consider it, nor has it come to them that it's an obligation. So this is a very simple example of how, yes, it's true that certain of our views, they do change from country to country.